Hey guys, today we have the Bose SoundLink 2. This one is enclosed in brown leather, and yes, it's straight from the factory. This one we're going to be skinning to complement the brown leather. We'll be skinning it with brown leather. The texture is a little different. The ridges on the skin are a little bit bigger, but the colors do complement one another. As you guys can see, the side with the Bose logo belongs to the bottom of the front, and the plain one is the top. Plus, there's individually precisely cut buttons along with two sides. With the outer bevel, just in case you want to apply that yourself, it gives it a nice little flair. Now, if you guys really look at the color of the brown, you may confuse it for black. Now, as you can see, for comparison, it is just a dark brown leather. That may be confused for black at a first initial look. These are available in many various different colors, but we're going to do a cross comparison of the leathers for you today. This one's the black leather. As you can tell, it's somewhat mattish. It's got a matte black look to it. And then this is the white leather. It has a little bit of a shine to it, just as the brown leather does. It's not as mattish as the black. It's also available in the anthracite silver leather, which is a similar texture to the brown. The silver leather is in limited supply. The manufacturer has discontinued this product, but you can still request it as a silver leather as supplies last. This final leather is the black ostrich, and you can tell of all the little ostrich leather pores in there. That gives it its own personal look. We're going to start an install with the top of the device. So let's open it up here. And then we're going to install one of the flat pieces on the top of the device. All these sections are sold individually so that you can customize your Bose to any color scheme that you choose. These sections are all individually named. This is the top, this section here, and then this is the front, 1, 2, and 3. That's if you guys decide to order these pieces individually. Now, even though that we installed the top part and it has contoured to the top of the device nicely, you still want to heat it so it will have a better stick to your Bose. The heat will soften up the material and it'll contour around that little rounded off corner. This is starting to look like a different speaker already. I can already notice the difference between the brown leather and the matte black of the buttons. Now we're going to install the front section of the top. This piece is similar to the one that we just installed, but this one does require heating to contour around that curved edge I mentioned on the other side. While installing and lifting the material back up, these strips are very thin, and while you're lifting it back up, you could stretch it, and then it won't line up correctly again. Now you want to press it down around the curve on the front of the device. Now, if you notice, there's a small dip underneath the bottom part of this front skin. I recommend heating the material first and then trying to contour the material around it. Soften the material with the heat and then press it firmly down. When you do that, you're almost creating a permanent mold or a contour from the material onto the device. I heated the material at the highest temp that my hairdryer would go. And since doing that, it caused the material to almost wrinkle and soften. And it was easy enough to press and form to the front dip of the bows. Now let's finish up the front of this device. This is the one with the bows cut out. 1, 2, and 3 sections of the front can be sold separately, like I mentioned before. So let's peel this piece off our wax backing. To install this one, you want to center the Bose logo with the cutout. Now that we have this piece centered, you can press the rest of this front piece down. Now, while you're pressing this down, you'll notice that there's a curve towards the bottom of the front. So at this point, we're going to have to grab our hairdryer again and heat up the material until it's soft so it will form around this curve. Now we're going to install the buttons. These buttons you may place on one at a time, but to be more efficient, I'd rather put on 3 at a time by using Scotch tape. I recommend putting on 3 at a time only because it'll form a better straight line than having one button higher than the other by putting them on individually. Now with your Scotch tape, place it across 3 of the buttons, and with your thumb, press them down firmly so that all 3 will lift up at the same time. When installing these, try to use the printed on numerals or whatever icon will be on the button to help you center the buttons on your device. And then once you have them centered onto the buttons, just press them on individually so you know each one is firmly on the button by themselves. While installing these first 3 buttons, I kind of made it a little bit too difficult for myself. I should have left the bottom of the buttons exposed, because the Scotch tape is a little difficult to see through. So let's try this method with the next set. So now let's get our fresh piece of Scotch tape and place it on top of the remaining buttons. Now remember, leave a little crack on the bottom to make it a little more easier for yourself to install. As you can see here, you can see where the buttons end now at least. So let's line it up. That center button is solid, so we're going to have to wing that one. So let's line up the edge of the buttons and see if we can see the icons through the tape. All we have to do is make sure that the buttons are aligned correctly and that they're straight on the buttons. Now, while removing the tape, be careful about that end one because the tape is holding that button up a little higher than the rest. Alright, now it's on to these sides. There are 2 methods to install these sides, both of which are fairly similar. One method is to use Scotch tape for that outer border, but for this installation, I'm going to use packing tape. Now, one other method, you guys can put these pieces on individually, but it will be fairly difficult to put that outer border on to make it align as it is when it's cut. It's going to be fairly difficult to keep the even spacing between both pieces of the skin. So if you do put it on individually, there's a chance that they may come out sloppy. So we have our packing tape, and we're putting it on both pieces of the side so that we can put them on simultaneously. As you can see, we pressed it down firmly onto the tape, and both lift off the wax backing fairly easily. All you guys have to do is center it around the side and make sure that you see the silver peeking through between the two pieces. Once you're satisfied, like I am with this install so far, press the skin onto the side. While pressing down these two pieces, on the thin border, you just want to press down the long parts of the sides. Now, removing the tape, you don't want to pull straight up because it'll pull the skin off the side. You want to pull the tape on about a 90-degree angle in order to remove the tape precisely and keep the skin even. Upon inspection of the currently fresh new install of this border, you're going to see that little edges around the whole thing are going to be lifted. That's because there's a little bit of a curve to the border. So at this point, we're going to have to grab our hairdryer and heat the edges of the border. So we heat it until the material gets soft, and then it easily contours around it. Okay, now it's on to the second side. We're going to repeat the previously done steps. As you can tell, I've already put some packing tape on this side. And now we're going to apply it the same way. Just make sure you can see that silver edge in between the two pieces. And make sure that it is even. The tape will give the skin a little bit of firmness when you're trying to realign it. So you don't have to worry about the thin pieces stretching too much because the packing tape will give support. Now remember, now that you have it applied, press down that solid piece completely onto the side. But when pressing down the border, only press the edges down. Leave those corners raised up because we're going to heat them with our hairdryer once again. And also, another point, when removing the tape, remove it on a 90-degree angle so it doesn't lift the skin off your device. Now we have the same raised areas as we did on the previous side. You don't want to press these sides down while the material is still a little firm. It's always better to press them down once they get soft from heat. And there you go, guys. We added a little bit more brown leather to our already leather-bound Bose SoundLink 2. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and until next time.